So we know that living in big cities has its perks, has its good things, bad things, and we don't really talk about the negatives as much, which is what we're going to talk about in this video, as today we're going to go downtown into the city and talk about some things that you should know about, or know that you're going to have to deal with if you're going to live or move to a big city. Let's go. So here we are in the back of my truck in downtown Vancouver, and if you listen closely, you may be able to tell what number one is, and that is that it's loud. And people say the city never sleeps, and which is a good thing, but also a bad thing, because even when you're not the one doing stuff, you're still gonna hear what everyone else is doing all around. Even at night when, people are supposed to be sleeping because, well, it's nighttime, you will hear people, you will hear cars, horns, and of course, sirens. I definitely consider it rare to not hear one siren at least throughout the day. You'll probably hear multiple, and you'll probably hear one at night as well. At least one. At least if you live in downtown. That sounds obvious to people who have lived in the city before or who live here now because we hear it so often. But if you haven't lived in the city before, then that may be hard to believe, but I mean, it's true. If you're someone who needs like total peace and quiet to get work done, this is definitely something to think about, and you may have to invest in some good, sound canceling headphones. Number two is traffic. And before moving to a big city, before moving to Vancouver, I would just drive around whenever I needed to, wherever I wanted to go, whenever I wanted to go. But after moving to the city, I realized you can't really do that because you have to pay attention to when you're driving, like what time of the day, and also where you're gonna drive through at that time. So it's a whole extra step. For example, you will never catch me driving through downtown around 5 p.m. or like 7 a.m. because, that's when people are going to and from work, and that's when it's the busiest. And if you want to get caught and waste your time in traffic, by all means, drive then. But I specifically planned when I was going to drive through downtown for this video because I knew I didn't want to waste my time. And specifically in Vancouver, it's never as bad as like New York and LA get with traffic because it's just not as big of a downtown area. And I've never been stuck for more than like 45 minutes or an hour like driving through the city. And since we were in downtown around 1 p.m. going between spots, we didn't really run into any traffic at all filming this video. Overall, it's not just the traffic that's annoying, but you also have to, plan when you're gonna drive through the city. I'm pretty sure you guys knew this one was going to be on the list, and that is the high cost of living. With so many people in one area, obviously the land is super expensive, which means whoever buys it, and then if they decide to rent it out, they can rent it for a lot of money. And with more and more people moving to the cities, the big cities, the rent just keeps going up. People keep moving to the big cities for like a bunch of different reasons, whether they just want to live the city life, like myself, or a job brings them here, or the city is just in a great location so people want to move there, like Vancouver. There's just so much to do around here. Even during the current times where more people are kind of like leaving the city than ever because of COVID and less people are moving in, the rent prices have still only dropped a minuscule amount. Like, you can kind of get a deal right now, but it's nothing like insane. It's also not just rent that makes, the big cities more expensive, but it's everything that you buy. Everything in the city costs more for companies to be here, so they have to raise their prices a little bit, and they can kind of just get away with it. And of course, overall, when everything costs a little bit more than other places, it definitely adds up. Everyone is taking photos or videos today. Probably not as good as mine, let's be honest, but everyone. I'm just kidding, I don't really know what I'm doing, to be honest. Number 4 is the condensed population, which at first just sounds like, okay, there's gonna be just more people around, right? But overall, it kind of makes all of your day-to-day tasks, everyday tasks, take a little bit longer. Whether it's filling up your car, waiting for a table at a restaurant, waiting for an elevator even, these things definitely add up and take time out of your day. Before living in the city, I never had to, wait to fill up my car with gas, but the first day I was here, I had to wait in a line, and it was kind of like a realization I had, which it's not the end of the world, but it's definitely something to keep in mind if you're moving from a small town where you never have to wait for anything. And this is probably most relevant in accommodation search. So when you apply for apartments, like you're trying to find a place to live, sometimes you can apply for 20 different places and send them a message, send them an email, and you might not even ever hear back. And that's usually because these people get so many emails themselves that the apartments are probably already gone by the time you even email them. You really have to be on top of your game when you're trying to find an apartment because things go super quick. And that's because of the condensed population, because so many people trying to find housing or things in, one area. Sometimes you may even go for interviews before you actually get the apartment because, the person who's renting it out has so many options. And don't get me started on parking downtown because, I could do a whole video on that. I won't. I'm just saying that I could. You've probably noticed there's people in the background of every single shot so far, and that's because, well, in the city there's way more people. So if you did want to get privacy where there's literally nobody around you, I know there's people looking at me right now, right where I'm pointing the camera at over there, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, if you wanted to get your own privacy where no one's looking at you, you might have to travel outside of the city to actually get that, because inside Vancouver there's just people everywhere. So depending on how important privacy is to you, maybe you'll have to find some places if you move to the city that you can go to for that privacy. Otherwise, there's gonna be people around everywhere and maybe some birds. It's true that everywhere I was recording today for a video, there were people everywhere, and I don't usually vlog out in public, so I was kind of like, damn, am I really a YouTuber now? I'm vlogging and stuff, but I was like, I gotta do it. But it made me think about how if I was gonna vlog elsewhere, I could just do it in private, but there's nowhere here that's private. Sometimes in the city, even places where you'd expect to have total privacy, like your own apartment or like your own balcony, you don't really always have it. A lot of apartments in the city look at other apartment buildings, you can see into other people's places when the blinds are open, which again, it's just part of city living. It's not that big of a deal to some people. And here's an example from an apartment tour we did 6 months ago of this awesome apartment. I think it was $2,200 per month, but on the other side is, other apartments. Again, if you did want total privacy, you just close your blinds. It's not that big of a deal, but the point of windows is to let in light and see things. So when you gotta close them, you're kind of missing out a bit. Number 6 is less nature, less greenery, and it depends on the city that you're actually in. Vancouver, for example, does a super great job of this. There's tons of parks everywhere, and in some cities, you sometimes have to travel away from the city to actually get out in the wilderness and feel like you're back with nature, as funny as that sounds. And the downside of this is, you have to leave the city, which if it's a big city, it might take you a little bit of time to actually get to the outside of it. There's a reason they call New York the concrete jungle, it's all concrete. I'm realizing a few of the things on this list, like nature and privacy, you kind of have to go away from the city to get them. And their downsides, of course, because if you're moving to the city to have a better life or whatever it is, and then you actually have to leave to get other things, that's obviously a disadvantage. Even if a city has great parks and stuff like that, you'll still be able to hear and feel like you're in the city. Number 7 is less space / more condensed living. In most big cities, I'd say the population goes up every single year, and obviously we can make new buildings, new apartment buildings, housing to accommodate those people, but we can never actually keep up. And over time, with more people moving to the cities, apartment sizes have got individually smaller because they're trying to accommodate more people into these buildings. So a 400 square foot apartment may sound insane to some people who haven't lived in these big cities, but to me, I see listings all the time for apartments that are 400, 500 square feet. And I don't think anything strange of it. I've seen it a lot. And because the cities are desirable, but they're also pretty small, I've seen bedrooms that are the size of a closet rent for, $1,000 a month. And usually those small rooms were actually initially designed to be small storage spaces or small office spaces. But since people are trying to find housing, they work with what they have. You'll almost certainly get less living space when you live in the middle of the city. You'll be able to get a way bigger place pretty much, anywhere else besides right in the city for the same price. Number 8 is actually something that I didn't even know existed until one day in Vancouver I just looked up. Well, actually one night in Vancouver when I looked up. And that is light pollution. And you may be thinking, how'd this guy not know what that is? But hey, some people don't know what it is. So light pollution, I don't know technically the terms or how it goes, but pretty much, there's so much light coming from the city that when you look up, you can't really see the stars. And so I figured out that it was kind of hard to go stargazing when I couldn't even see one star. It's another one of those things where you have to travel now away from the city to be able to, do something. And it's not like I need to look at the stars every night or something. I'm just saying that it was kind of weird that I just couldn't look up and see the stars. Not the end of the world, but that's why it's number 8. Hopefully some of the things in this video gave you guys some insight on the big city life, and I just saved you some time, so now when you move here, you won't look up at the stars and wonder, why they're not there. So with that being said, leave a like on the video if you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys want to see from the channel, and of course, I will see you next week.